So how long does a DUI case in Cumberland County, PA take? You just got arrested for DUI in Cumberland County. The court date is on one piece of paper somewhere on the kitchen table, and the question that keeps running through your head isn't about fines or penalties. It's simpler than that. How long is this going to take? The honest answer? Some Cumberland County DUI cases wrap up in 3 to 4 months. Others take 8 months, a year, or longer. In this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what drives that difference and what you can do to keep your case from dragging out longer than it has to. I'm Sean Quinlan, Pennsylvania DUI attorney based in Camp Hill. Let's get into it. So what's the big picture timeline? First, let's zoom out and look at how a Cumberland County DUI case actually moves from start to finish. After your arrest, there's an initial release of paperwork, usually the first day or two, then a preliminary hearing, typically within a few weeks. After that, your case moves into what I call the slower middle phase: formal arraignment, evidence review, pretrial conferences, and possible motion hearings. Eventually it resolves, either through ARD admission court, a negotiated plea, or trial. For most first-time offenders, 3 to 6 months is a realistic ballpark. For contested cases, repeat offenses, or cases that involve blood testing and lab analysis, 6 to 12 months is more realistic. Think of it like car repair. Sometimes the job is quick, but one missing part, a late lab result, a missing body cam recording, a suppression motion can hold up everything. So what happens right after the arrest? The first 48 hours feel like a blur for most people. 1 minute you're being pulled over near the Carlisle Pike, Route 15, or coming off I-81, and the next you're trying to figure out paperwork. Your car, your license, what happens next? That early period matters more than it seems. Day one typically includes the stop itself, field sobriety testing in many cases, and either a breath or blood test. If blood is involved, and this is important, the lab results haven't come back yet. That delay alone can change the pace of charging and negotiation, and it's one of the main reasons drug DUI cases and high BAC blood draw cases take longer than breath cases. After testing, you're looking at fingerprints, a preliminary arraignment, and release conditions. Those conditions might include reporting requirements, no alcohol provisions, or other restrictions depending on the facts of your case. What to do right now? Keep every single piece of paper you've received. Charging documents, bail paperwork, towing receipts, property receipts, any hospital paperwork. Pull it all in one folder today. I tell my clients to download a PDF app and scan it all into their phone. And write down a timeline of events while your memory's still sharp. What you ate, where you were, when the stop happened, what was said, whether you were asked to do field tests, when testing occurred. Details fade fast. A same-week written timeline is far more valuable than 3 months from now than anything you try to reconstruct from memory. The court process step by step. Let me walk you through each phase of the Cumberland County DUI court process so the timeline stops feeling like a mystery. The preliminary arraignment and bail. This is the first formal court step after arrest. A judge, magisterial court judge, magistrate district judge, MDJ, they address the charges, the bail, and any release conditions. It's usually quick, but the conditions set here matter. If bail terms are unclear, that confusion doesn't get cheaper to sort out later. The preliminary hearing. This is not your trial. It's a checkpoint where the court decides whether there's enough evidence for the case to move forward. This often happens within a few weeks of the arrest. Some cases move past it through waiver or negotiation, especially when the focus is on ARD screening or motion practice rather than fighting probable cause at the moment. Formal arraignment, pretrial conferences, and motions. This is where most of the calendar time usually goes. After formal arraignment, which is largely procedural, the case moves into evidence review. Police reports, body cam footage, calibration records for breath machines, blood draw records. Everything gets examined. If there's a legal issue, an unlawful traffic stop, a weak basis for the blood draw, problems with how the field sobriety testing was conducted, motions can be filed. A suppression motion asks the court to exclude certain evidence. That process takes time, but sometimes taking more time in this phase is exactly what protects you later. Resolution. ARD, plea, or trial. Most DUI cases don't end in trial. Many first offense cases aim toward ARD. Others resolve through negotiated plea. Trial is the longest route. More preparation, more scheduling, more uncertainty. But sometimes it's the right call depending on the facts. So how does your specific situation change the timeline? Not all DUI cases move at the same pace. Here's how the most common scenarios play out in Cumberland County. First-time DUI with ARD eligibility. This is usually the fastest path. If you qualify for ARD, Pennsylvania's pre-trial diversion program, and you move through the process efficiently, a first offense case can often resolve within a few months. The catch? ARD isn't automatic. Eligibility has to be reviewed, and delays in applications, evaluations, or document collection can add time even on a straightforward case. The first-time DUI without ARD. If ARD isn't available or isn't the right path, expect more negotiation and more careful evidence review. Maybe there's a challenge to the traffic stop. Maybe you're waiting on video or records. That can add months, especially if motions are filed. Repeat DUIs or high BAC case. These cases almost always take longer because the stakes are higher. Mandatory minimum sentencing exposure, prior offense review, and tougher negotiation positions all make quick resolution less likely. When more is on the line, a slower and more deliberate defense is usually the right move, not a sign something is wrong. Drug DUI or blood test case. These are typically the slowest. A drug DUI can involve illegal substances, prescription medication, or a combination of the two. Blood testing, lab results, and sometimes expert review all take time, and there's more room for dispute. A lab result doesn't always clearly explain impairment, especially with prescription drugs or inactive metabolites in the bloodstream. These cases need that extra time to be handled properly. What runs on a separate track from your regular court DUI case? Here's something that catches a lot of people off guard. Your license problems don't wait for your criminal case to finish. PennDOT consequences, ignition interlock requirements, and refusal-related suspensions develop on a completely separate timeline from what's happening in court. You can still be going to pretrial conferences while already dealing with a license suspension. That split track creates its own pressure, and it's one more reason to get ahead of the details early, rather than waiting to see how the court shakes out first. If you hold a CDL or a professional license, nursing, teaching, healthcare, contracting, time matters in a different way as well. A CDL issue or licensing board concern can affect strategy from day one. Sometimes that means pushing for faster clarity on the court side. Sometimes it means being more deliberate to avoid a result that follows you much longer than the court itself. And if your case involves an accident, an injury, or a minor passenger, expect a longer and more complicated timeline. More investigation, more records, sometimes additional charges. A basic DUI can become something much slower once those facts are in the picture. So what can you do to keep this thing moving? You can't control the court calendar, but you can avoid delays that come from being disorganized. And those delays are more common than you'd think. Get your documents together now. Bail paperwork, charging documents, towing receipts, medical records if relevant, prescription records if a medication issue is involved. If your case involved a hospital blood draw, keep every discharge sheet and billing record you were given. Avoid the common mistakes that waste time. Missed court dates create chaos and can trigger a warrant. Missed evaluations do the same. Social media posts can complicate your case for no good reason. Incomplete information slows down the review of your own case. Stay reachable, show up, treat every deadline like it matters because it does. Ask the right timeline questions. When you get a case review, focus on what actually matters this week. ARD eligibility status, blood test turnaround, upcoming court dates, any deadline that's coming up. That one habit changing the whole experience. Instead of waiting blindly, you know what the next checkpoint is and what you need to do before you get there. What the end of the case actually looks like. One thing I want to be clear about, the end of the court case doesn't always mean the end of the disruption. If your case resolves through ARD or a plea, the outcome can include fines, classes, treatment, probation, community service, and license consequences that continue after the court appearance is done. So even if the case closes by month 4, parts of the outcome may run for a year or more. Case over can be misleading. The courtroom piece finishes, the real-life follow-through doesn't always follow right behind it. If your case goes to trial, that's the longest route, with the most preparation and the most uncertainty. But sometimes when the evidence is weak, or the stop was unlawful, or the testing was flawed, trial is exactly the right call. The goal is always the best available outcome under your specific facts, not the fastest exit from the courthouse. A Cumberland County DUI case can take anywhere from a few months to over a year, depending on your charge, your history, the evidence, and how the case is handled. The difference between a 3-month resolution and a year-long process usually becomes clear early, if you know where to look. Start today. Write down every date you have, put every document in one folder, and build a written timeline of what happened from the stop forward. Then get a case-specific review so you know what your actual timeline looks like. Not the average, but yours. If you've been charged with a DUI in Cumberland County and want to understand what your case involves and how long it's likely to take, reach out. Free consultation, no pressure. Link is in the description. Subscribe for more straight talk on Pennsylvania DUI law. See you in the next video.